to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You are now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Hello.
What is up, Niecy?
You, Mr. Don Neuen.
Holy cow, Denise. I don't know what kind of day you had, but mine has been wide open. Wide open. And we had some major thunderstorms. Now, they have cleared away, and I have clear driving, which is good because, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Drive Time Sit Rep with Denise Simon and me, Don Neuen. This is a conversation. I am in my personal car driving home from a long day at work. I have called Denise Simon up, and I'm about to find out everything that happened today and over the weekend. Even though I did talk to Denise over the weekend, we're going to find out some things that might have happened over the weekend, but most specifically today, because I had zero time to watch the news, read the news, follow anything in social media. I am clueless, Denise, on what happened on planet Earth today. So we're all counting on you to bring us up to speed, make us look more intelligent than we actually are. A lot of pressure there when it comes to doing that for me, right, Niecy?
Okay.
Hey, before we get started, though, what do we got to do?
Time stamping.
Nope.
Oh, Merry Christmas.
Is that Merry Christmas right back to you, Denise. Thanks for saying that. Hey, yesterday, were you an Easter worshiper?
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
and today.
Me too. Yeah, me too. Every day. Anyhow, for those of you that don't get that little inside joke and don't find that funny, we're going to tell you why, because we want you to be able to join in the jocularity. Here's the deal. As many of you know, for the 8 years that we endured the Barack Obama administration, we had to live in the shadows as Christians. And we could not, celebrate Merry Christmas. We couldn't say Merry Christmas. It was taboo during those 8 long years of the Barack Obama administration. Well, we now say every week on the Drive Time Sit Rep, Merry Christmas. And we do that to make up for some lost time. And the fact that we no longer have to live in the shadows as those who celebrate Christmas. Now, the other thing was the Happy Easter worshiper, or the Easter worshiper. Many of you probably picked up in the news back around Easter of this year that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton would not refer to Christians as Christians, but rather Easter worshipers. So we're driving that into the ground too, right, Denise?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Now, what Denise was talking about when she said time stamp the show, and the relevance of that is that every week on the Drive Time Sit Rep, Denise very eloquently, and you're about to find out how eloquent she is when she does this, she time stamps the show. We do that for one reason, to let you all know whenever you listen to this show when it was recorded. We do that because so many times Denise Simon is so far ahead of the curve that when she's talking about something, it hadn't even happened yet. Right, Denise?
Yes, sir. Sure.
All right. So let's timestamp it, get after it. I am an eager beaver waiting to find out what happened today.
All right. Well, it's 8:53 p.m. Eastern on the 24th day of June in the year of our Lord 2019.
Oh, so eloquent. Got a nice ring to it, Denise.
Okay.
All right. The other reason that we timestamp the show, ladies and gentlemen, is so that you will feel sorry for Denise and I, who are working our butts off at almost 9 p.m. Although, Denise, I don't think anybody really ever feels sorry for us.
No.
At least I don't get any emails at cowboylogicradio@gmail.com telling me how sorry you guys feel for us for working so damn hard. All right, So what happened? What's going on, Nisi? Where do you want to take us?
Well, we have to really start with Iran. I will be very honest with you that I am disappointed that we were not more assertive in our response to Iran shooting a $150 million high-tech drone of ours out of the sky. I'm hearing so many, the Tucker Carlsons and the Rand Pauls and, so many others saying, we don't want war. Well, just because we respond doesn't mean there'll be a war, And the concept, too, of going to war, I think there just seems to be some mental vision of some of these people that means that we have to go send in 150,000 ground troops and we're going to go invade Tehran. We don't fight those kind of ground wars anymore. In fact, I would argue if you really looked at where we were with Islamic State, in all those theaters and where we are today in Afghanistan with the Taliban and Islamic State and Al-Qaeda there, we are telling those home nations, we'll teach you how to fight. You go fight. We'll back you up with technologies and target packages and all those other kinds of things. And we'll even give you air support. But this is your territory. We don't want to be there anymore. So I would tell the Tucker Carlsons and the Nancy Pelosi's and the Rand Pauls and all the rest of them, we don't fight those kinds of wars anymore. But having said that, Trump called off the strike package, allegedly with 10 minutes left to go or whatever it was. And we're getting some conflicting things because he canceled it after he asked the question how many people could potentially die, and some, general said, hold on, and it came back and said 150. Well, that's not how it works. Because the Pentagon gives the president a briefing, and these are the options. Option A, and this is what will happen. Option B, this is what will happen. And option C, the Pentagon, whatever general or aide or whoever it was, would never trot on over to the White House Situation Room completely unprepared without the full spectrum of what would happen with the menu of options that a sitting president or commander-in-chief would choose. So there's something wrong with that story. If Trump wants to say that, he didn't think it was proportional, fine, but there's something wrong with that story in my world.
Why do you think he delivered it that way?
There could be all kinds of reasons, and I've kind of gone back and forth in my head on some of these. It could have had to have done with Iraq, didn't have all, our troops in Iraq were not completely hardened because, we still have Iranian militia operating in Iraq. Saudi Arabia could have weighed in. Israel could have weighed in. We have the whole Yemen component with the Houthis. I mean, there could have been a lot of reasons. But the other one, and I had mentioned this, I don't know, for 3 or 4 nights on other radio stations and to whoever was listening, is that we had a cyber component. And it appears that we have been inside not only Iran in their cyber architecture, but we have also been inside of Russia's cyber architecture. And we have been waiting with whatever cyber programs that we have completed and want to launch for the approval and go button so we can just hit enter. Well, apparently in some form or fashion, we did that with Iran instead of hitting a couple of targets. And what we did was hit some command and control locations that had communications with rocket and missile systems, mobile launchers and those kinds of things. So we apparently were inside the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps platforms, and we did that. Now, Iran confirms that something happened, but they also said that it wasn't effective. Of course, they would say that. So we went the soft route instead of the hard route. Am I okay with that? Well, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think that the reason that Trump came out and said what he said, which you, Denise Simon, dispelled as the procedure that would be used, do you think that he did that basically flashing erroneous signs to Iran and then hitting them with this cyber attack so that they weren't ready for something like that? They weren't even looking for it. They were worried about him dropping bombs all over the place. And if that is the case, and it was really never the intent to go in and bomb the daylights out of the place with a hard attack, that he does the soft attack, and once again, Trump does something that nobody was really expecting, and it ended up being significant in this fight.
Well, no, I don't think that, because you don't put airplanes in the air. There was a green light. I have a particular couple of connections that I was getting text messages on, and the last text message that came to me said, "I've never seen anything like it. We went from green to yellow to red." So there was a go order. You don't give a go order if you're going to do something else. You don't put ordnance on planes and they're sitting on launch pads, and you then pull them back. Yeah, that doesn't work that way.
All right, well, let me ask you this. Why, when Trump is under such a microscope for everything that he says, to the point where you've got media outlets that are tallying every word and listing almost every sentence that he makes as a lie, why do you think he would do something like that?
I just gave you those answers. Some other entity interfered. Something else happened between 7 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. And I don't know what that something is. Again, I don't know if it was Saudi Arabia. I don't know if it was Yemen. I don't know if it was NSA. I don't know if it was Cyber Command. I don't know if it was Israel. I don't know who it was. But something else came in, and, he's holding that particular card to the vest.
All right, well, again, I guess let me rephrase my question then. If he makes a comment that goes against a well-known procedure of the Pentagon to the point where Denise Simon instantly picked it up, and I'm not marginalizing Denise Simon's ability here, but why would he come out with something that is, based on what you're saying, not procedure and could potentially be fictitious when he's always getting nailed by the left for saying untruth?
Well, there was nobody in media or anybody necessarily outside that was in the room between 7 and 7:30. So they packaged it such that this is the response that you're going to give, or not, for aborting the mission. So he's stuck with that.
Yeah, but again, I want to go back to the fact that a general or an aide, when they trot over to the White House, they have these answers?
Yes.
What I'm getting hung up on is that, Trump is saying, I sent him back to the generals to get this answer. Now, the only way that could be a truth is if, in fact, somebody from the Pentagon didn't provide him with the data that he needed to make that decision.
Yeah, but I can tell you that's just, between the Pentagon and Central Command, that's just not the way they operate.
Okay, so my question then again is, why would Trump lay out a reasoning that you dispel completely against military procedure, Pentagon procedure?
I'm not in this White House.
You're not the. I know, but you're not the only one that knows this kind of stuff. I mean,
right.
I guess my point in beating this dead horse for an answer that you don't know is we don't need to provide liberals with more ammo. Trump doesn't need to provide them with more ammo, and maybe he just doesn't care. I get that. What liberals say about him, clearly that's obvious, and sometimes it's.
Well, he was going to get tarred. He was going to get tarred and feathered, whatever he did. If he kept with the green light and hit something like a half a dozen targets, he was going to get tarred and feathered. If he aborted it and said we were going to, we don't want any collateral damage and deaths and whatnot, and we'll go do something else, he was going to get tarred and feathered anyway, because they said, they've already said, you caused the storm, you caused it to rain, and then all of a sudden you're just handing out, umbrellas to everybody and, telling everybody to come back inside. So the fact that we have any kind of hostilities with Iran is still Trump's fault. And, the fact that, he had tankers that had limpets attached to them is Trump's fault. And the fact that,
sure.
Okay, so
and
whatever it is.
We haven't cured cancer is Trump's fault. I get it. But okay. You got John Brennan coming on giving Trump kudos for showing
restraint.
Yes. And anytime John Brennan gives Trump a kudo, you got to wonder what's going on.
Well, I guess at this point, I would ask the question, is there a red line now with Iran? Did Iran call us up and say, hey, we're really sorry about this. We're going to write you a check for $150 million. They don't really have I wouldn't take a check from Iran for $150 million to pay for a drone. I don't know what it was, but is there a red line? What can Iran do next to the United States that we would do something more than, a 72-hour cyber attack?
I believe that Trump did answer that, where you mess with an American life, you got a real problem on your hands. Did he not?
I didn't hear that. So if he said that,
well, I'm paraphrasing. I'm paraphrasing that. Okay?
But here's the deal: why do we want to cost an American life? Why do we want to go on the defensive after we've lost a life?
Well, we don't. What I'm saying is that if he ends up shooting down. If Iran ends up shooting down something that would have lives on it, if I recall, over the weekend, I did hear that. It may have been in that interview that he had with little Chucky Todd, which I didn't listen to, but I did see snippets of it. Anyhow, we'll see.
I'll let the question stand out there. What is the red line then? Because
I agree.
I think that we really do have to be students of Iranian history. So today, as part of another response, in addition to the cyber hit, the Trump administration signed yet another sanction on Iran. And this one's actually kind of interesting. To hear Steve Mnuchin over at Treasury, he said that this sanction package today was already in play prior to losing a surveillance drone. And this one it's kind of interesting and also has me scratching my head, because this particular sanctions executive order, if you will, went right to the top, including the Ayatollah, the supreme leader himself, which says that we are cutting off some funds availabilities in certain banks, wherever they necessarily may be, that Iran cannot make those withdrawals. We have apparently seized some funds. That will definitely hurt. So this has hit the Supreme Leader himself and those in his immediate circle. What's particularly interesting is that Mnuchin said in a little question and answer after the signature of this executive order was the Iranian foreign minister, I guess he's still the foreign minister, Mohammad Javad Zarif. He's not included in this, but it would happen later in the week. It's like, what? Why have one separate for him? And he didn't go into, this particular executive order. I'm not sure I understand that. But anyway, today's actions included the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps' Navy, Aerospace, and Ground Forces, in addition to their commanders of their Navy and 5 naval districts. I'm not sure I understand what a lot of this means, but I'm putting it out there. It includes naval district commanders who are responsible for the activities off the coast of the southern provinces, which there's 3 or 4 of them, in addition to the other 5 districts. And then he listed some specific people whose names I can list for you, but it would be a little bit of a challenge of listing Persian names. It doesn't really matter. But these guys are, in fact, some of the top leadership of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Let's see, I think there's 5 there. So there's at least 5 of those cats. Now, so there's a block on funds. Now that will particularly hurt because I do know that Iran in some cases is pretty much out of money. They have been making some withdrawals of what they call their National Development Fund. At one point it had about $92 billion in it. I think early this year. They have been making some withdrawals out of that. The method by which that fund was even financed, if you will, is they were taking certain percentages off of oil revenues, oil sales, and putting it in there. What that fund was really, I don't know what a development fund's for, but because Iran's hurting financially, they have been making some sizable withdrawals from that particular fund. I estimate it down to be about $70 billion. I don't know how you can run a country on $70 billion at all. So,
well, what they have to do is they have to sit tight. They got to really tighten up the belt, and they have to wait for the next Democrat to become the president of the United States so that he can have a Democrat Secretary of State and we can give it all back to him.
Yeah. We're not taking it from, we're just stopping access.
No, I know that, but you know what I'm saying. All right, we got about a minute before we have to go to break. Let me remind everybody, while we're on the break here at the bottom of the hour, ladies and gentlemen, I encourage you to trot over to Denise Simon's website, founderscode.com. If you haven't already signed up in her subscription box there that she has, stick your email address in there. It's very safe, and you will receive an email every time Denise writes an article. The beauty about her articles, and I've said this now going on 3 years probably, however long we've been doing this show, Denise does all the work for you. They're all vetted. So you can read them, you can repost them, you can discuss them, you can use them in whatever kind of a conversation you might have with 100% confidence that it's been well vetted and that you are not going to be spewing forth bogus information. Denise handles every bit of the hard work for you. All right, on the after we get back from the break, I don't know where Denise is going to take us, but I'm sure that all of us, including myself, for the next 2 minutes, are going to be extremely excited about coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Drive Time SITREP on Mojo 50.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
gentlemen, welcome back to the Drive Time SITREP with Denise Simon. My name is Don Neuen. You are listening to this show on Mojo 50. You also can catch it on iHeartRadio. Please trot over to mojo50.com. That's mojo50.com. Check out that entire website. We've got some phenomenal shows on this network. At any rate, Denise, before we went to the break, we were talking about Iran and everything that you got going on over there. Do you want to stick with Iran? Where do you want to go?
I want to mention one more thing, because there was actually a closed door meeting today at the United Nations Security Council, and it had to do with the recent attacks on the oil tankers and the U.S. drone that was blown out of the sky. And this closed door meeting at the United Nations Security Council actually ended without any United Nations condemnation of Iran.
Why is that not just shocking?
Well, just let that one sink in.
Yeah.
So
when exactly are we going to pull out of the UN and have it removed from New York?
Well, I mean, I hope that's a rhetorical question. I mean, we can.
Of course it is.
Okay. We can pull out of the UN, but you know what? All our enemies are going to be in there plotting against us, and they're plotting against us even when we're in there.
Of course it was rhetorical. Okay. Although I don't have a problem kicking it out of New York, but that too is slightly rhetorical, because I would assume that our spying capabilities on the UN, given the fact that it's in New York, are better than anybody else's. I would hope.
It's infected with spies.
Of course it is. All right, where do we go from here, Nisi?
Well, let's talk about the border here for a little bit, shall we?
Sure.
Because we keep hearing that Mexico has actually stepped up their game, and they are helping stem the volume. They're cutting down on the volume of those that are coming into the United States through our southern border. Now, I'll say this with the caveat that a lot of our border patrol that was assigned to the border have been pulled off the border because they're running a hospitality operation for all these illegals. But Nick Valencia, who's a CNN reporter, interestingly enough, sent out a tweet today that said, breaking, Mexico has deployed almost 15,000 troops to the U.S.-Mexico border to curb migration flow. An additional 2,000 National Guard elements have also been deployed across the country's southern border with Guatemala and Belize, and this is coming from Mexico's Secretary of Defense, Luis Sandoval. So he went on into another tweet and said, I've never seen this kind of cooperation from Mexico before in terms of immigration. So maybe this is, the threat of the 5% tariffs going up month by month by month. The threat of that was effective. I don't know if that's what it is. I don't know if we have offered to give them some financial support to help pay for some of their National Guard and their military on these deployments. I don't know what it is, but 15,000 is a lot. 15,000 is a lot.
Two questions. Number one, do you think it's fact or fiction? Number two, can you trust the Mexican military to not be as corrupt as a lot of the Mexican law enforcement is?
Well, whatever it is, for CNN to make the admission is big into itself. And for them to be quoting the Mexico's military minister or whatever it is, the Sandoval character, and have it not to have to be retracted, tells you that the 15,000 is true. Now, will there be some corruption? Yes. But I would have to say, even if 10,000 were on the up and up and the 5,000 were corrupt, I'd have to say that's still a very good thing.
All right. Well, that's a warm and fuzzy moment.
It is. It is. So I'm very happy with that one. Now the question remains, Trump was going to launch the deportation yesterday of the 1 million illegals. Now, let me explain to you what that 1 million number was or is. These are exceptional criminals whose cases have already been adjudicated. In other words, these are judge court orders. Their case is over with. And the judge has ordered their formal deportation. These people haven't left. Now, that's big.
Is the number of 1 million accurate? I mean, relatively accurate?
I would say so, because I've heard it a couple of times. To the point where our government, Department of Homeland Security, which division I don't know, has actually sent letters to wherever they can possibly send it to these 1 million plus or just under 1 million, whatever it is, that says, hey, you know and we know that you have been ordered by a judge. Your case is finished. The sentence is that you are to be deported. We know that you need to get your personal affairs in order, blah, 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 blah. Come see us. We'll work with you and we'll give a time schedule. I mean, we couldn't be any nicer. And, we'll schedule your deportation to be X. I mean, we're trying to be as gracious and benevolent as we possibly can be. And yet,
quite frankly, we always are.
Well, yeah, it's a little tiring, isn't it? But
yeah, it is.
So now to hear the Democrats say it, we're going to start ripping people out of their houses and out of their jobs and blah, 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 blah. No, these are murderers. These are rapists. These are, robberies, all these, nasty, nasty things. So, I got delayed. Now, it got delayed because, as Trump says, the Senate has come up with, some kind of bill for the $4.5 billion humanitarian funding for the border. And the House apparently is working on something else. Nancy Pelosi calls up Trump and says, hey, Mr. Donald, these are children. I'm the grandmother and I have so many kids of my own, blah, 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 blah. How can you do this? Wah. We're going to come up with something. Well, they've already come up with some things. And these things that the House has come up with isn't jiving with the Senate thing at all. In fact, the House item, the House bill, has all these separate riders in it. And essentially, these riders, if you will, is repealing immigration law. I mean, yeah.
Never ceases to amaze us, does it?
And so, if you think that something's going to come together here in 2 weeks, I guess Trump has decided he's going to play along. It ain't going to happen.
Well, is he doing, again, I mean, like Trump or hate Trump, bottom line is, I don't really think that there's very much that he does that doesn't work into his favor. What do you think his angle is? What has he thought about that Nancy Pelosi has not thought about? How's this going to backfire on her?
I'm not going to give this one to Trump. Trump's the spokesperson, but I believe most of this is coming from Ken Cuccinelli, who is the acting director of CSIS, whatever the heck that acronym's for. But, he was appointed to that organization, Customs, right, whatever it is, CSIS. Okay. And, he's taken this thing exceptionally seriously. He's looking at each of the events and he's like, okay, we'll let this play out. Now, So what's going to happen is that at the end of 2 weeks, let's hope that we do follow through with the deportation of 1 million, whatever that number ends up being. And in the meantime, he can turn around and say, well, look, the Senate has one thing, the House has another. They hardly match at all. They're not coming together. They're not even meeting. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Blah, 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 blah. I've given them the chance. We've got a humanitarian crisis. I didn't make it. We can't handle the volume. The system has been on blinking red with buzzers and bells going off for quite some time. You Democrats are whining about this. Now you've got cities and mayors. Chicago, I think, was the most recent one today that said, you know what? You start on these deportations. We are not going to allow ICE access to our databases to even find out where these people are. So we keep hearing that no man is above the law, but this brand new mayor in Chicago just put these illegals whose cases have already been court-ordered and adjudicated above the law. Yeah. They're a protected class.
Yep. Exactly. With more rights than you and I have.
Well, and so after... I've been sitting in kind of a dark space today because, one is that we have this whole immigration component going on. And then I started looking at this Iran sanctions pretty closely. So I trotted on over to the Treasury Department. And I started looking at the active sanctions architecture that we have on countries. And let me just kind of review some of these, because it's really kind of remarkable. I'm not going to go through all the sanctions that we have on countries, but I'm just going to kind of list some, because we have them on Balkans, Belarus, Burundi, something called Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, whatever that is, Central African Republic sanctions, counter narcotics trafficking sanctions, counterterrorism sanctions, Cuba sanctions, cyber-related sanctions, Democratic Republic of Congo, foreign interference in the United States election sanctions, the Global Magnitsky Act, Iran sanctions, Iraq sanctions, Lebanon, Libya, Magnitsky, Nicaragua, non-proliferation, North Korea, rough diamond trade control, Somalia, Sudan, Darfur, South Sudan, Syria, transnational crimes organizations, Ukraine, Russia, Venezuela, and Yemen, and not to be left out, Zimbabwe. Okay, so that kind of tells you, if you start clicking on some of those, which I'm not going to do here, but I mean, I'm looking at all this, kind of turning my head and saying, this is an ugly world. This is a very ugly world, and I'm taking a bird's eye view at all of this. I don't see this world getting cleaned up anywhere. Do you?
No. I mean, but the thing is, as you were reading through that,
yeah,
a lot of those sanctions are for some nefarious characters on the world stage.
Yes.
And there's a good chunk of the earth that has been left out of those sanctions. Sadly, all of those chunks that were on the sanction list are strolling the aisles of the United Nations, and no one's doing anything about it, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to write about this tomorrow, but I'll kind of give you a heads up. It was just a couple of days ago that Mike Pompeo came out and spoke about, from the State Department, trafficking in persons report, and that the United States is one of the worst, not the worst, but one of the worst. And so I started poking around, and I mean, we obviously have some major trafficking that's going on our southern border, but we also have all this other trafficking that's going on in spite of the southern border. And yet our country is sitting in the same category, get this, as Saudi Arabia, Cuba, China, Iran, and North Korea.
Huh.
Now that was really quite depressing.
And embarrassing.
Yes. I mean, what an ugly world this is. I mean, we're sitting in the same paragraph as some very nasty countries because of human trafficking. Now, over the weekend, Tampa, by the way, did a human trafficking operation, arrested 58 people. But, you know, admittedly, Florida is one of the worst states because, I mean, we're such a transient state. So Tampa arrested 58. Great. But maybe the number needs to be 58,000 that are getting arrested. I mean.
Well, hey, hold on a second. They haven't been to the villages yet.
No, that's the STD headquarters.
Yeah. Hey, we don't have anything against the villages. It's just, I don't think I'd ever want to live there.
I got an awful lot of friends that live there, and they're having a hell of a time. They love it. But anyway.
So I've heard. Hey, look at there. There's a garage door that's only 1/3 the way up. What's that mean in the villages code?
Well, there's so many. I mean, the place is so monstrous. But anyway, you know, we have a very ugly world. And I guess, you know, Pompeo, he's got the least enviable job, I would say, in government. I mean, because can you imagine getting a daily SITREP report, you know, having to brief him every morning on what's happening, you know, something around the Mueller report or the John Kerry State Department with the Russian collusion thing, or, you know, we've got national defense strategy thing. We've got Iran. We've got trafficking. We got Russia. We got, you know, I mean, what a crummy job he has. Thank God he's in it, right?
all I got to say about that is thank God that Mike Pompeo is an Easter worshiper.
Lord mercy.
You know, think about it, Denise. Aren't you happy?
I am.
That he's an Easter worshiper?
I am. And on top of that.
Can you imagine if he was in that position and wasn't?
And a graduate of West Point on top of it.
Yeah, baby. I dig me some Pompeo.
Phew. I don't want to just kind of go on the ugliness of all of this, but I mean, in a big perspective, we have an awful lot of things that are going on in this world, and especially in our country, and yet we've got these Democrat debates coming up in 2 sessions because there are so many of them. And won't it be fun to listen to what they say and what they should be saying and are not saying? Couldn't you make a list?
Of course. Listen, if you could be a fly on the wall in any of those things, you know you'd do it.
Sure. And the fact that we're going to, eliminate all student loans. We're just going to consider them all. Hey, we're going to forgive them all. It's over $1 billion.
I was asking Donna about this weekend. When are the Democrat debates?
Thursday night, Friday night.
Well, come on. I need some help here.
I don't know. This week, I think.
All right. Now, do you have enough popcorn at your house for this?
Yes, but I don't eat popcorn, but yes.
But if you did, you've got enough, right?
Yes.
I mean, this ought to be extremely entertaining.
Well, nobody's going to get to really say anything. How do you, how do you do that? You divide them into 2 groups, and you get to ask one question and you get about 4 seconds to answer it.
Well, it's going to look like is like a college football game.
June the 26th and 27th.
All right, June 26th, 27th. Who's moderating it? Do we know?
I think Rachel Maddow was moderating. Was she not?
It gets better. Man, I might have to take the day off just to get ready to watch it.
Well, the way they divided them all automatically also tells you who they're pushing towards the top, getting them closer to the nomination.
So now listen, you know, obviously on Cowboy Logic Radio, we've got an entire hour this week with you and Tom Del Beccaro. And you're not a fan of prognostication, but who do you think is going to weather the storm and end up being the nominee?
I said that.
This question
I already said
over
that.
and over. I know, but I want it on this show.
I think it'll be Kamala Harris.
All right. And how much of an opponent do you think she would be to Trump, or will he decimate her?
Oh, she'll be a pit bull. I mean, she's a nasty woman.
And of course she is. But she's got a lot of skeletons in her closet, many of which you talked about.
Yeah. I mean, I can't think of any of these that really don't have skeletons in her closet. I mean, Elizabeth Warren does. You know, Beto O'Rourke, give me a break. Julian Castro,
he's abuse of power. They don't have abuse of power, and that's going to be a hot topic after Durham's report comes out. Well,
I can only hope that, you know, Trump, I mean, really with any of them, because I mean, you know, what is going on for all of them is they're going to get this report, and these are the things, you know, that you go after Trump with. I mean, they're already giving us those indications every time they go make a stump speech someplace. The only one that seems to be failing at reading the memo right now is Joe Biden.
Of course. But you know what? Trump comes back with the scathing one-liners. I'm just looking forward to it. You know, ultimately, this is an extremely serious election. It seems like every one of them gets more and more serious, and more is on the line. But as long as Trump wins in 2020, then I'm going into the Democrat debates, the Democrat primary, the general election debates where they go head to head, and I can't wait for it. I just hope he annihilates whoever his opponent is.
Well, I am going to watch them because I think there's going to be some interesting common denominators among, you know, the two nights. And it'll be fun to see who's going to try and stand out from the next person. You know, where we're going to be with the Joe Bidens, the Bernie Sanders, the Kamala Harrises, and the Elizabeth Warrens. You know, Mayor Pete, he's finished. Cory Booker, he's not going anywhere. Beto O'Rourke, Julian Castro, de Blasio, Tulsi Gabbard, Amy Klobuchar. I mean, you know, the Kirsten Gillibrand. I mean, I can't even figure her out. Eric Swalwell, I think he's got like 8 people that even show up, and they show up probably because they gave him a chicken lunch.
Some of the numbers are so small, they don't even register like on a 9-point calculator, like a decimal point with zeros after it, 9 decimal points.
Right.
They don't even show up. Does de Blasio have anything like that even resembles a whole number?
Not that I've seen. I mean, the numbers that I've kind of heard are they're hysterical. They're cockamamie. You know, the way they're spinning it. And
they still think that people take them seriously. That's what's so damn funny.
Well, I mean, who is this Andrew Yang character? And
yeah, he's the Asian guy.
Yeah, I know who he is, but I mean, nobody has a clue. Or John Delaney, Tim Ryan.
That name I didn't even recognize.
Yeah, Tim Ryan.
Oh yeah, he's the guy with .00000000005% of the vote.
I'm really kind of surprised that the DNC hasn't turned around and said to somebody like, Jay Inslee or Bill de Blasio, go away and don't do this, because what you're doing is you're splitting up monies and calendars and, just go away.
Well, they can't do that. The libs, everybody gets a trophy. Everybody gets to stand on stage. It is comical.
I can't figure out what their strategy is. I mean, I just can't figure out what the DNC strategy is. And, I want somebody out there, or somewhere between the Daily Caller and Breitbart or Real Clear Politics or something. Somebody's got to come up with the memo. There's a memo that's gone out, and they're all using the same memo. I want to see that memo. It's out there. That was put out by the DNC and the DCCC and, Perkins Coie or whoever else. There, it's out there.
It's called,
I want to see it.
Give us your freaks. We'll give you our candidates. I mean, they're waiting. To me, it sounds like they're waiting for the bearded woman or the alligator man, or the freaky Siamese twin that is in Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Who is running? I don't even know who's running Biden's campaign. It's like everybody else got the memo except Biden. Biden then kind of gets attacked because, he is out of step. And then he comes out the next day and goes, this is my position. He did it with, 5 or 6 issues now. He's had to kind of walk some things back.
You think?
So he didn't get the memo.
He needs to get a job at IHOP where he can just flip pancakes all day. I wonder if, I know there's a war room, so I want to know who's in it. Is it Hillary? Is she in there? Is Jim Acosta in there? All right, leave it with Jim Acosta. We got to go. This has been a great SITREP, Denise. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you'll spread the word about the Drive Time SITREP to your friends and family. Go to mojo50.com, mojo50.com. Check out all the great shows on that network. You can find us on iHeartRadio. Denise, take us home, dear.
Thanks for being with us. Thanks for listening, and God bless America.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.